So this is my family, so you can get to know me a little bit. That's my family, and was our Christmas card this year. And so the two little girls, the one with a crown is mine and Pat's granddaughter, Lucy, and the one right behind her is Caroline. And they're the shared granddaughters, but that's my children and their husbands and us. That was at a church fair, just so you have a little snapshot of who I am. But it went out of date really quickly because here's the new edition that was born 6 weeks ago. Tell me that's not the cutest picture ever. I knew I'd get, oh, I love it. You know, you can show that picture to a group of men and you will never get that response, ever. We do it every time. We could open a present at a baby shower, and it's really universal. It's global. We all do that. It's so funny to me. You know, when you get down to it, and one of the things I love about Florida is how international it is. You have diversity has a different definition in Florida. You are it. And it's so awesome. But you know, when it gets right down to it, whether we're here, or we're in Africa, or we're in India, we're in South America, we're so much the same. I want to thank the women that did their testimonies. They were awesome. But it's our hearts. And if you did a testimony, stand up for a minute. Where are you? I know you're here. Stand up, stand up, stand up. We want to thank you. There they are, yeah. It really is, but it's who we are as people. And we're going to practice our live polling, okay? So try again, log on, pull your screen up, www.menti.com 261297. You there? First question, redefined, okay? One thing I would like to change about myself. Anything. What is it? Pick one thing. Oh no, that's the last one. That's not it. They'll change it. They're going backwards. So the www.menti.com 261297. One thing I would change about myself. There it is. Got the right question. Is it up? So that's the end of the story. That's my last question. Log back in, log out, and log back in, and it'll be the right one. It's okay, we have plenty of time. I was only supposed to be starting right now. It's 12, so we're good. So, what is it? Click slide. When you get it, you have to, I don't know what she means. Somebody that knows what you're talking about, come up here and tell everyone, because I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, we can do it.
At the top, if you see a button that says Go to Slide, when you click it, it'll take you to the correct question.
So raise your hand if you have the correct question. Raise your hand. Woo-hoo! There is a God. So I'll tell you something really funny. My husband says there will be no technology, no sound systems, no anything in heaven. Do you know why? Because they'll all be in hell. Because they mess us up every time. We practiced last night. Okay, so answer the question. Type it in. Answer it. 64 people so far have answered. You can see on the right corner. It's up to 72, 76. Keep going. Here we go. Wow, weight is a big one. Ha ha, that wasn't a pun. Patience, my weight, patience, nothing. So what happens on this screen is the bigger the word, the more common the answer. So you will see what you all, keep going. So cool. Oh, yes, please. So the big ones are patience, obviously, my weight. Fear is a big one. Wow, 287, 288, these just keep going up. Okay, so somebody, will you go up on this thing and say them out loud? Read them because you can get closer to, I can't read them from here. Go all the way up there. Tell me and I'll tell them. Tell us what, read the big one. Anyone that's big, read it and tell me. Patience. Okay, patience. Just say them to me and I'll say them next. Okay, attitude. What is it? Pride. Be more giving. Confidence. Love myself more. Insecurity. Faith. Heart. Vulnerability. Forgiving. But you know what's really crazy? Look at the huge ones. You know when we say how much we're all alike? And you would be shocked who put that down. Well, what do we say? Patience, attitude, fear, weight. That's who we are. It's so funny. No one put their nose or things. I wish I was taller. Like, good for you. This is just our practice. But we all have things in our heart, don't we, that we wish we could change. And it is amazing how many things with God we absolutely can change. I love the thought, though, redefined. What if all was intended for good? That's a pretty crazy thought when you think about it. Let's go to something more significant on the live polling. What bothers me most that is going on in the world right now? You know, immigration, Me Too, crisis of children. You pick. Gun violence, self-harm, challenges of being a mom, injustice of women, human trafficking, singlehood, gender identity, race relations. What is it in your heart? Let's write it down. And I'm going to get you to help me again, okay? We're going to get good at this by the end. What is it that bothers me? Me personally, what is it that bothers me? It's still going up. It's 122. Oh, we're doing much better. Yes. Well, racism's a huge one. Violence, gun violence, hate, anger. The good news is when you fill this in, you can also get the results from them yourself. So still go up there reading me through this. What are some of the other ones? Okay, jealousy, child abuse, immigration, hurt, social media. Social media is true. Oh, the president. Ooh. You know, it's a challenging verse. The Bible says we're supposed to honor. I have to remember to honor. Sexual harassment. I didn't write it. I just read it. I only read it. Addiction. Oh, jealousy has gotten very big up there. Hatred, jealousy, cruelty. What is it? Oh, gender society. Mental illness. Huge, huge, huge. Think about it. What if all was intended to good? How do we even wrap our head around all is intended for good in these issues? But God promises, I know that it's intended for good. How? How can that be? It's mind-boggling. It takes our faith to grow to a whole different place. Look at Genesis 50, verses 19 through 21. It's coming. Genesis 50. We're going to talk about Joseph today. And let's read. This is an amazing verse that has changed my life since I was asked to do this Women's Day, and have been studying it for the last few weeks. It says, Genesis 50 and verse 19, "But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. You know, most all of us that have gone to church even once in a while or as little kids know the story of Joseph. His brother sold him into slavery. He ended up in prison. God stayed with him. He stayed positive the whole time. His dad dies. And these are his brothers that go to him, and they're so afraid that he's going to do something to them. He becomes a ruler, an authority. There's a famine. His brothers are going to him asking for food, but the dad dies. And they go to him, and they are on their knees, and they're asking, please, we are sorry for what we did. Please, please don't harm us. They sold at 17 years old. They threw him first into a cistern that was empty, and then sold him as a slave. And his comeback when he's talking to them is this. How mind-blowing is that? Romans 8:28 says, all works together for the good of those that love him. Do we really believe it? You know, I think one key to us being able to get our head around this is we've got to figure out things are not always how they seem. I'm not minimizing any of this in any way, shape, or form. These things are horrible. But God says, I will use all things for the good. He's not lying to us. So I don't know how that is. But I have to step back from my indignation of the injustice to be able to even begin to think how God can use this for the good. Let me tell you a crazy story that this is me personally, not someone else. I wish I could say someone I knew did this, but no, this was me. So we moved back from the UK, and we had nothing, and we had 3 children. And we moved into a house, and I was collecting furniture off of garage sales. Remember, we used to open the paper and look at want ads and garage sales and things, and that sort of stuff, you know. And I had bought a dresser that I decided I didn't like, so I was selling a dresser. But we moved into a house that I needed to rip up this orange and green flowered carpet that was lovely. Lovely. And we were going to put down tile. And I had 3 little kids, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning or so, and the guy comes to the door, and I said, his name was Alex. I remember Alex came to the door, and I said, oh, come on in. And I took him upstairs to our bedroom, and I said, I didn't say anything. I just showed him the dresser. And he looked at me. And I had advertised it for $150. I still remember, $150, okay? And I'm standing in the bedroom with this man, and he's just looking at me, and I said, well, make an offer. I am talking about the dresser. He is not the guy to buy the dresser. He's the tile guy. And so at that moment, and get this, he for real on TV, one of the WWF wrestlers, okay? Like for real, this character that's on TV. I'm like, oh, no, it's not how you, my husband's actually downstairs in the office. It's not, no, you're here for the tile, aren't you? You're here for the tile. About that time, the doorbell rings, and I'm like, let me take you downstairs and show you the tile. This poor guy that came to buy the dresser, I was mortified. I'm like, yeah, why don't you come on in? I'll show you the dresser. It was not at all how it seemed. And he actually did the job, and we laughed about this situation for years to come. But it's not how, like, God sees it's our life and how we look at things is that crazy. He's like, I've got it. And I know you're only looking at this, and this is terrible, there's no doubt, but I'm going to use it in another way. We've got to open our minds up to that. The only way we're going to get from here to that we really trust God with all the injustices in our own life or in the world is we've got to say, God has a bigger view than I do. And he has a bigger picture. And I do think we have to laugh at ourselves. For sure, without a doubt. Okay, so now I need you to look at one screen and pay attention, and you're going to go through a little test, not your phone, but up here. Pay attention, and there's a prize for the person that does right, that gets it, okay? So pick one, don't look back and forth, pick one screen, look at it, and we're going to do this. Ready? Go.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count? The correct.
Oh no, we got it to the end. Can you play the rest? Okay, but
this is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white.
We'll stop it there for 1 second, okay? So, how many of you saw a gorilla? Look around. Look at all of you that didn't see a gorilla. Okay, we're going to play it again now. Watch this. Wait, watch. Watch, okay? You didn't go ahead. Let's play it.
This is a test of selective attention.
Okay, watch this.
Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
What? Wait, what?
How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15 passes.
Okay. Is that mind-blowing? Okay, raise your hand if you didn't see a gorilla. Raise your hand. How crazy is that? Listen, everybody. Okay. We said there was a prize. Raise your hand if you counted 15. Raise your hand. Okay, here's your prize. Ready, ladies? Let's all applaud them. Look at, isn't that the first I did that? My husband showed me. I couldn't believe it. But you know, we are so certain how we see things. Absolutely certain. We can be dogmatic. I did it 5 times. I count 16 passes. I don't believe there's 15. But I'm sure they're right. But we're so, and as women, we can be so set in our ways. Like, I know it's right, and I know how this is, and I know how it's supposed to go, and this is not fair, and I'm going to help make it right, and that's not how God approaches it. God says that the good news is his son died on a cross. What's good about that? If my son died on a cross, could I ever say it's good news? That's good news. We've got to realize we do not have the eyes of God. And when we start off with that premise, we're like, okay, as clear as this seems to me, I didn't see the gorilla. You know, and those of you that saw the gorilla can't believe those of us that didn't see it. What do you mean you didn't see it? How could you not see a gorilla? There was a man in a gorilla suit. That's us. We've just got to realize we don't see it. We've got to embrace the thought, I may not be seeing it clearly. And God promises no matter what is going on, he's going to use it for good. I have 3 points for us today. First one, redefined. You got to let go. We have to let go. Let's read now in Genesis 29, 16 through 30. You know, many of us know the story of Joseph, and many of us know that you may have seen Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat or read a Bible story or done whatever. What I didn't realize till this past month is there's like 21 chapters to the background of Joseph. There's a lot to him. But let's read in Genesis 29, 16 through 30. Hold on one second, let me turn there. Turn to the wrong one, so sorry. You're with me? Good. Genesis 29, 16 through 30. It says, okay, so this is the background. Jacob is Joseph's father, and who our parents are and what goes on at home and is a lot of who we are. We know it has a huge bearing, so this is a little background for you. It says, now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. I would hate that to be written about me in the Bible. It says, Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than some other man. Way to go, build them up. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, but they seemed only like a few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife. My time is completed and I want to lie with her. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah to his daughter as her maidservant. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? Laban replied, it's not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older. Finish your daughter's bridal week, and then I will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work. And Jacob did so, and he finished the week with Leah. And then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant girl Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maidservant. And Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. How messed up is this? This is total, the Bible is full of okay, let's think about Leah for a minute. I always hear about Rachel. God puts in the Bible that she had bad teeth, and he doesn't comment, but Rachel was beautiful, and there's no comment about Leah, which probably indicates something. But Leah had to be in on this trick, so there's something messed up about that she, behind her sister's back, married this man. How he didn't know till morning, I don't know. What? And then I always thought, my Bible stories that I always remember was, he worked for 7 years for Leah and then 7 more years for Rachel. I thought he got Rachel after the 7 years, but it was at the end of the wedding week. So now you have 2 sisters, one that is loved and one that is unloved. I don't know, sisters, we have a hard time with sisters sometimes without this drama. Think about this. Well, I just want to tell you, I'm going to give you a little summary. The next 20 chapters are even more messed up when you study. So let's go to the next slide. All right, I'm going to explain this. This is 20 chapters here. This is crazy. So Jacob, I'm going to retell this. This is messed up. Jacob, well, first of all, Jacob's the father, and he's a godly man. We know that he wrestles with God for a blessing. So we know that he's a godly man. He just had a few hiccups. We know his brother was Esau. But Jacob, okay, so he first marries Leah. And Leah is able to have children. And she conceives and gives birth to 6 sons through Leah. And then later 1 daughter. So Leah is able to have children. Rachel is not able to have any children. And her heart is broken, but Jacob still says all the time he loved Rachel. I can't even imagine how Leah's feeling. Okay, here's the messed up part. So Rachel's not able to have children, so she says, okay, Jacob, you sleep with Bilhah, my maidservant, and have children with my maidservant since I'm not able to have children. Classic example of taking the control in our own hands, and we mess it up. So Bilhah then goes, her maidservant then has 2 sons. So then when Leah, here, I'm telling you, messed up. Then when Leah stops having children, she's like, well, then I'm going to give Jacob my maidservant because I'm not having any more children. For Pete's sake, she already had 6 sons. Like, really? So then Zilpah has 2 more sons. Then Rachel finally gets pregnant. And when you read through this over and over and over, Leah would say, she would give birth to another son, and she says, my master will now love me. My master will now see, I will be in a good standing in his eyes. Your heart just breaks for her. So Rachel gives birth to Joseph. She has this 1 son, and then she's able to then conceive again, and during childbirth with Benjamin, she dies. This is we think we have dysfunction in our family. This is so messed up. So now think about it, though. I've always thought, what wicked brothers Joseph had that threw them in the well. But it's Leah's sons and the maidservant's sons that throw him in the cistern in the well. But the other thing, note to self, is women were very powerful at passing on our bad attitudes. I am sure they are taking on this is total speculation. It's nowhere in the scriptures. But I thought, those boys are taking on the bad attitudes of their mothers. Wow, that's challenging. Do you ever see it in your kids? You're like, that's my bad trait. Sorry. I sometimes apologize to Pat's daughter. When my son does something, I was like, I tried to help him with that. He's yours now. I'm sorry. I do it with all my in-law kids. I'm like, sorry. I tried. But let's look at Genesis 37, verses 2 through 4. Here's the real problem, and I mentioned it, but we've got to read it for ourselves. Genesis 37, verses 2 through 4. It says, this is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, and his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. He's a little snitch. It's not good. It's dumb. It's dumb. When you're favored, you shouldn't be a snitch. You shouldn't. It says, now Israel, which is another name for Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of the other sons because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made a richly ornamented robe for him. And when his brothers saw that the father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word of him. It's at this point that he's thrown into the cistern, he's sold into slavery. Terrible things happen to him. Absolutely. When we think about the injustices of the world, when we think about us, every single one of us have injustices. Joseph didn't make all of his injustices right. We just do. You have injustices. I'm going to show you this next slide. This is me and my birth father, who I lost contact with for 18 years, and in the last 2 years have reconnected. And this was this past August. He and I met in Maine. Growing up, he was in the church. My grandmother lived in Fort Pierce, and we'd come down here and go to church. He was my emotionally close relationship and fun. My parents divorced when I was young. He'd pick me up from school every Friday. We got to pick anything we wanted to do. And I was very close to him. And then his mother got very ill, came and lived with us and by us, and I took care of her. The last time I saw him was at my grandmother's funeral, and then I didn't see him for 18 years. I called, my brother had medullary thyroid cancer, big events in life, I'd call him. There was no answer, no return, no anything. I wrote a registered certified letter and sent it so that I knew he'd get it. Months went by, it was returned to me. My brother, who's Doug Arthur, finally made contact with him. And 2 summers ago, I went up and drove 9 hours from Philly up to Maine and said, "Can we have lunch?" And I walked in and I sat down and I said, "Listen, I don't want anything from you, but I'm not looking for anything monetary, financial, but I do have one thing. And that is, can you tell me my story? Can you tell me why? Or what happened? Or tell me about my grandma. Tell me." We had so many questions. We sat for 4 hours and talked, and have been talking every month since. But you talk about letting go. I will never make sense of the 18 years we lost contact. And I had a choice to make. Do I want to reconnect and let it go? Because I'm never going to make sense of that. Or do I want to hold on to it? My choice was, and everybody has the choice. My brother he for a while didn't want the contact, which now he is in contact with him. But I have the choice, but especially before God, I need to let it go before God for sure. But we have the ability to let go. And I can say either I'm going to hold on to the last 18 years and not have a relationship, or I can let it go and I can go forward. What do I want to do? My choice, and it's so freeing and so fun, my choice is absolutely to let it go. Now, the problem is there are so many times that we have sins or concerns or fears or whatever in our heart that if we could let it go, we would. Have you ever had the feeling that I wish there was just a switch I could flip? Because I want to let it go, but I just can't. It's hurt me too much. Joseph had to let it go. He had to let it go that, yeah, you sold me into slavery. Even the whole hashtag Me Too, all the stuff that goes on, I'm like, well, here's an example. This happened to a man in the Bible. The stuff, it's been going on a long time. Injustices. Okay, so our next live polling question, and Carol Merrill's going to come up here and help me. What keeps me from letting go my past hurts? What heart sin do I need to hold on to? One word. Just give it one word. What keeps me from letting go? So fear, pride, anger, pain, memories, forgiveness, disappointments, grudges. Look at the things that keeps me from letting go. But you know what? We can let go. Like, we have to understand what you believe, what we believe matters. It may take you a while to get there, but you can let go. And we've got to say, listen, I want to let go of pride. I want to let go of fear. I want to let go of God. God, help me do these things. Confess it. Tell it to another sister. Get somebody else praying for you. Study the Bible. You can absolutely let it go. The pain. Let me tell you a crazy thing about pain. We have a drug rehab organization in Philly, one day at a time. And the guy who led it was a brother that has passed, and his name was Reverend Wells. He was an amazing man. But I went over and talked to him about when we first moved to Philly, and he was asking me questions. And when Walter and I first got married, I got pregnant with conjoined twins. And lost conjoined twins was my first pregnancy. And I went over, and he was asking me questions. I was telling him about it, and he said something I thought was the most insensitive thing I've ever heard. And I started to cry, and he said, "Oh, you haven't talked about that enough, have you?" I thought, what the heck? What are you talking about? But it's because it was true. When the pain is in us, and we haven't talked about it enough, it just stays in us. And if we really want to, and at that time, I was indignant with him. But I realized he's helped so many people with addiction, through hard things, through more than I can even imagine. And it was true. But we have to understand that all those feelings, all of that stuff in our heart, we can let it go. Let me appeal to you to want to let it go. Because there's times when we're mad and we want to stay mad. And we've got to let it go. But you know, the next thing, the second thing about redefined is we've got to let God. Let's look at what God does in Joseph's life, because he lets things go and he lets God take over. Genesis 39, 2 through 4. It says, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned." Then look over at Genesis 39, 19 through 23. When his master, okay, so let me tell you a little bit in the middle. So Potiphar, Joseph, I would be questioning God. Joseph is sold into slavery. He's found favor with the household. They put him in charge of everything. Potiphar's wife starts hitting on Joseph. And Joseph's like, no way, no way, no way. So he runs out. She grabs his coat and accuses him of wrongdoing and molesting her, being with her. Nothing had happened. It's all the wife. Okay, that's where we pick up. In verse 19, it says, "When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, 'This is how your slave treated me.' He burned with anger And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him, and he showed him his kindness and granted him favor in his eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all of those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Somehow we think if we do things God's way, that life's going to be easy. There are no promises. The whole prayer of Jabez and all that, it's rubbish. That's like God's going to, the prosperity gospel, you do it, God's going to bless you, these things. I don't see it anywhere through the scriptures. And Jesus died on a cross. It's not that our life is going to be easy, but we are equipped to do and handle and face whatever God allows to happen in our life. From the years of 17 to 30 years old, Joseph went through chaos. But you know, he sort of like brushed himself off. Okay, I'm a slave now, so let me be a really, really good slave. Then the master's wife lies about me. Oh no, now I'm a prisoner now. I'm going to be a really good prisoner. He's not fretting and being upset. And then in each situation, he prospers. And God's with him. And God takes care of him. So whatever happens, it's going to be okay. Like, we've got to take it in our heart that I'm going to let God, no matter what happens, God's got it covered. And I may not see it. Just remember that gorilla. Like, I may not see the truth as clear as it looks to me. I may not see the gorilla. Like, we've got to entertain that. And God, and even when we pray, God, this makes no sense. None. Zero. It's okay. I'm giving it to you. Okay, live poll question. We ready? Come on. Live poll. What person or situation do I wish I could give to God? Yeah, what person or situation do I wish I could give to God? A few ideas. Health, kids, marriage, parents, jobs, loneliness, fear, anxiety, abuse. What is it? What do you wish you could give to God? Marriage, husband, anxiety, dad, parents, forgiving myself, health, forgiveness, my son, abuse, husband, my parents, my health, boyfriend, brother, dad is getting bigger and bigger, husband, fear, kids, anxiety. Look at those. I'll recommend a good book for you, Anxious for Nothing by Max Lucado. You know, us worrying about it, when we don't let God, when we don't let go and we don't let God, it does nothing for us. It's not like we change anything, except our blood pressure, maybe. Like, that's it. Anxiety, fear. You know, we've got to decide, I am going to give these things to God. I'm going to let God, I'm going to trust it. I don't know how it's going to work out. You know, the last thing and the third point I want us to talk about, it with redefined, is you've got to live. Genesis, back to where we started in Genesis 50. And you already know the last question because you saw it first. Genesis 50, in verse 19, it says, "But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, But God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. The fact is, his brothers intended to harm him. You have situations in your life that have harmed you, or that are harming you, that is happening. You have somebody at work. You have yes. We're not denying that. Joseph didn't deny it. He says it straight up. You intended to harm me. Satan wants to harm every single one of us. Satan wants to harm all of our children. But it says God intended it for good. Do we really believe, like in every situation, no matter how unjust and how awful it is? The abortion rate in America is tragic to me. How can God use that for good? Well, all the babies, they're in heaven. How about that? They're there. They're safe. I don't like abortion. I don't want that. I don't want that there. God loves them. What's the good? What there is, it's a promise. There's some good in the awful situation. What is it? God, help me to see it. The fact is, good is being accomplished, and God will use it for good. God, help me to get out of your way. Do we pray like, God, use me? How can you use me? The fact is, it's promised here that what is being done, the saving of many lives, that's what God cares about most. How do we save so many lives? How can we do it? How can I help? How can I be a part of the good that's being done? But the problem is when we get so focused on the bad that's being done, we don't spend any energy on the good. We spend it all on, this is awful. Joseph is the one that says, I will provide for you. He tells his brothers. He tells his nieces and nephews. He tells their wives, their husbands, don't worry, I'll provide for you. I will treat you kindly. The fact is, it's out of our control. Doesn't that stand out the most? Don't we remember when the shooting in Lancaster, that was about less than an hour from my house with the kids in the schoolhouse, and the Amish people forgave? They took meals to the shooter. They did all those things. How can we, the gun violence in schools, the things that have gone, how can we use it for good? God, help me to see and do what is it that you want me to do? How can I live my life and use it for good? Our last question. You ready? What do I want to be known for? You know, one of the things I say to myself is, I don't want any situation or person to make me into someone I don't want to be. What if a video camera is just on me? So think about it. What do I want to be known for? And we can answer it. I want to be known for love, for kindness, for beauty in and out, for compassion, for patience, for loving God, for compassion, for righteousness, for strength, for respect, for love, no fear, for humility. Think about it. You know what's amazing is that we have absolute control for what we're known for. It's our choice. This next slide is somebody that I think, we're still coming in. The person that, one of the people in my life that's just, as far as living, is one of the best examples is my sister. My sister is Roxanne, and she was given up for adoption when she was born, and I didn't even know about her till I was 24 years old. And this is a picture of she and I in India. And Rox is a bigger-than-life, let-it-all-go, just amazing, amazing, amazing woman. But when I studied this passage about Joseph, I had this sort of eerie realization that in so many ways, I was Joseph. And she could be the other brothers or the other sister. The reason I say that is she was given up for adoption. I wasn't. I went to university. She didn't. She's at this time divorced. I'm not. She's had all sorts of troubles in her family and her life. I haven't. We're really close. It never even dawned on me. Somebody said to her recently, which I was indignant. Someone said to her, you know, it's good that you were given up for adoption. And her immediate response was, yeah, that's true, because her adopted parents, the Sharps, she said the Sharps really needed me. I was like, who are you? It would take me 2 days to think that. Who are you? You know, where we really say, like, we've got to think, like, wow, you know what? Newsflash, you've not only been hurt, you've hurt people. You have. Intentionally or unintentionally, you have. Any one of us that's a mother, we've hurt our children. We do our best. There are no perfect parents amongst us. We may be upset with our husband. You've hurt him too. Like, we've got to focus on that, and it helps us to live, and it helps us to let go, and it helps us to let God. I'm going to share with you one final story of a very, very dear friend, and this is very present and immediate in my life right now. So Walter and I are in Philadelphia, and we lead a region in the Philly church. And we went to lead, it's the only region in the whole church that we haven't led. And we've been there 1 year now. And we went to that region to lead it a year ago. And you know where you know of people in the church, but you don't really know them? You know, it's like, I know of you, I've been in this church a long time, but I don't know you. I had one friend in this region, Uche. She was my own, and I went to her, and I said, Uche, can we be friends? And she was one of my very, very dear, close friends. We'd been in the ministry. She was in the ministry in Philly 20 years ago. We were very, very close friends. She then went to Nigeria and worked in the ministry there, and she was now back. She and her husband were unable to have children, and they decided to adopt. They're both Nigerian, so they were applying to adopt in Nigeria. And while they're in Nigeria, they went to Nigeria, they did all the paperwork, everything. Last year, the adoption in Nigeria was finalized. But they were waiting on the U.S. immigration papers. So her son, Josiah, during the last year, has been living with the evangelists and women's ministry leader in Nigeria. It was all finalized. We're just waiting for the paperwork to come. And during this time, and last fall, her husband got stomach cancer. And Christmas night, technically December 26th, he died. On the same day, she got the letter to go pick up her son. She always said, I'll do anything. I'm going to be happy being single. I'm going to do all this, but I never want to be a single mom. January 6th, she left as a widow after her husband's funeral to go pick up her son, Josiah. She got to Nigeria, and the U.S. immigration papers yet approved she needed the paper in her hand to return. She's a teacher. Her husband had no life insurance. She is off work without pay. Month after month went by. 4.5 months have passed, and she's not able to come home. This past week, she got her paperwork, and she will return home Tuesday morning this week. We're doing a GoFundMe to try to help her. But if you think about someone like Joseph, of, what? Why am I a widow? She's in her 40s. Why am I a widow? Why did you take him? Why this time? When we get into asking God why, she's been the most unbelievable example. I talked to her, and I said, how are you? She goes, I feel so loved by God. I'm like, how's that? It's a situation we cannot wrap our head around. When you really think about Joseph, you can't wrap your head around it. But you know God timed it that letter came on the same day. She goes, I know it's the hand of God. It's not what I want, but it's okay. Whatever it is in our life, we've got to identify it and let it go. We have to let God take care of it and then stand back and wait. He will send the gorilla into your life to help you out. You know, we've got to do it. And so many times, I swear, God sends the answers into our life and we don't even see it. You know, and then we've got to live, have fun. You know, life on earth as disciples is all of the hell we'll ever experience is here on earth, and it's pretty good here. This is our heaven. We start now, and we will take it into eternity. And that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.